A day in the life of a medieval farmer. Before the first light begins to touch the edge of the sky, in a quiet village of wood, stone, and thatch, a medieval farmer wakes slowly in the darkness of his small house, and he does not wake with surprise or worry, because there is nothing sudden in this place, and there is nothing sudden in his life. Only the same soft beginning that has come before on many mornings, with cool air resting in the room, with the faint scent of old straw, dry timber, and the last traces of yesterday's fire still lingering near the hearth. And for a little while he remains still beneath his blanket, his eyes only half open, listening to the silence that belongs to the hour before dawn. A silence that is not empty at all, but full of small and distant things. The quiet settling of wood, the lightest movement of air along the wall, the far sound of a bird not yet fully awake. And slowly, very slowly, he turns onto his back and breathes in the cool morning air, feeling the heaviness of sleep leave him in its own gentle time. And after a while he sits up, placing his feet on the floor, where the wood feels cool and familiar beneath his skin, and he rests there for a moment longer because there is no need to rush, and because the day has barely begun. And in the stillness of the dim room, he reaches for his clothes, simple things made for work and use, a rough linen shirt worn soft by many washings, a plain tunic of wool, trousers sturdy enough for field and path, and shoes that have shaped themselves to his feet over many seasons. And he dresses with slow, practiced movements, one hand lifting cloth, one foot stepping in, one knot tied, one sleeve pulled into place. Everything simple, everything known, everything done in the same order as always. And when he is dressed, he stands, stretches his back and shoulders lightly, and crosses the room to the door, where his hand rests for a moment on the wood before he opens it and steps outside into the pale, cool hour before sunrise. The air outside is soft and damp, carrying the smell of wet earth, grass touched by night dew, and a faint trace of smoke from old fires gone quiet in the village. And above him the sky is still mostly gray, only just beginning to loosen at the edges into a thin wash of silver blue, while all around the houses, fences, sheds, and small garden plots lie under a calm veil of mist that keeps everything gentle and blurred. And the farmer stands there for a moment, breathing in the morning and feeling its quietness settle around him, hearing almost nothing at all, only the occasional rustle of leaves, the distant stir of an animal in its shelter, and somewhere beyond the houses, the first steady song of a bird. And then he begins to walk. His path from the house to the field is narrow, packed firm by many feet and many days, and he knows each uneven place in it without needing to look down, each stone, each turn, each fence post leaning slightly toward the lane, and his steps are slow and even, carrying him past sleeping houses, past stacked firewood, past a patch of herbs growing close to one wall, past a wooden pail turned upside down to dry, and the village still feels only half awake, as if the whole place is breathing gently in its sleep. And he hears no voices yet, no strong movement, only the small, quiet sounds of a place rising at its own calm pace. And by the time he reaches the open land beyond the last house, the mist over the fields is beginning to thin, just a little, enough for the rows of crops and the darker lines of turned soil to show through, soft and still in the early light. He pauses at the edge of the field, not because there is anything new to see, but because he always pauses here, and because the day seems to begin properly moisture, the leaves still wet from the night, the shallow furrows neat and familiar, and he bends to touch the soil with his fingers, feeling the cool dampness of it, the fine texture of loose earth, the softness just beneath the dry upper layer, and the simple knowledge of that feeling tells him what kind of morning it will be. A good morning for steady work, like so many others. He takes up his tools, made of wood and iron, worn smooth where his hands have held them through seasons of use, and he begins, not with force and not with haste, but with the same rhythm he always finds once the first task is in his hands, a rhythm of bending, lifting, clearing, pressing, straightening and moving a little farther along the row, a rhythm as steady as slow breathing, and around him the light of morning grows so gradually that it is hard to see it, changing, the gray becoming pale gold, the pale gold becoming warmer and clearer, the mist rising lightly from the ground and fading into the open air. And all the while he continues with his work, never rushing, never stopping for long, letting each small movement lead naturally into the next. As the sun begins its slow climb, the dampness on the leaves turns bright in the light, and the air warms just enough for the cool edge of the morning to soften. And the farmer hears more sounds now, though all of them remain gentle. A cart far off on a road, its wheels turning with a low wooden rumble, the flutter of birds lifting from a hedge, the faint sound of another person working somewhere beyond the next field, and none of these things disturb the calm. They only fill it a little more, as day slowly replaces dawn, and the smell of the earth changes too, becoming warmer and richer, less wet and more open, carrying the clean scent of growing things. And from time to time he pauses to stand straight and rest his back, looking across the field, then down the rows, then to the distant line of trees, and finding everything exactly as it should be, simple, quiet, and steady. He moves through the morning without thinking in large ways, because there is no need for large thoughts in a morning like this, only the need for attention to what is close at hand, the place where the soil is firmer, the patch where weeds need lifting, the row that asks for a little care, the place where water has rested more deeply in the night, and one by one these small tasks are done, then left behind as he moves onward. And because they are small and ordinary, they do not burden him. They simply shape the time, turning the early hours into late morning with a calm pattern of repeated effort. The sun is higher now, the sky clearer, and the shadows of his body and tools lie shorter across the ground, while the breeze, when it comes, is light enough only to stir the tops of grasses and make the leaves tremble faintly. And he drinks from a small flask of water and wipes his hands against his tunic, then returns to work with the same patient pace, following the line of the field as if the field itself is guiding him, one row after another, one action after another, the work neither exciting nor difficult in any dramatic way, simply continuous, like a slow stream that does not hurry and does not stop. At midday he goes to a tree at the edge of the field where the shade lies broad and cool on the grass, and he sits down with care, lowering himself slowly, setting his tools beside him, and from a cloth he brings out a simple meal, bread, a piece of cheese, maybe a little onion, perhaps some ale or water, all plain things, all enough, and he eats in silence, taking small bites, chewing slowly, feeling the coolness of the shade against the warmth left on his skin by the sun, and above him, The leaves move softly, making a light repeated sound that blends with the hum of insects in the grass, and the air under the tree feels still and settled. A quiet pocket in the larger quiet of the field. He looks out across the land while he eats, not really studying it, only resting his eyes on familiar shapes, on the rows of crops, on the distant road, on the slow drifting of a single cloud. And when he is finished, he leans back against the trunk of the tree for a little while, letting his hands rest in his lap, letting his eyes close halfway, not sleeping, only resting, and the stillness of midday folds around him, warm but not heavy, quiet but not empty, and time passes in such a soft way that it is hard to say how long he sits there, because the light changes only a little, and the breeze only little by little, and the day remains gentle and predictable. When he rises again, it is with no reluctance, only with the quiet understanding that the next part of the day has come, and he takes up his tools and walks back into the field, where the afternoon begins, much like the morning, though the light is fuller and the warmth more settled on the earth. He bends again to his work, and once more the rhythm returns, familiar, steady, and almost soothing in its repetition, bending, clearing, lifting, pressing, moving, pausing, breathing. And because he has done these motions so many times, they do not ask for much thought. And because they do not ask for much thought, the hours can pass gently around them, and the afternoon stretches long and even, with no sudden event to divide it. Only the small changes that come naturally with time, the light becoming softer by slow degrees, the breeze carrying a little more coolness. Now and then, the sounds of birds growing fewer as the day grows older. Sometimes he hears another cart in the distance, sometimes the bark of a dog from the village, sometimes voices too faint to make out. But all of these sounds remain at the edge of the world, never sharp, never urgent. And the field keeps its calm center, where his tools move through soil and leaves with quiet regularity. He notices small things as he works, the rough feel of a wooden handle warm from his hand, the softness of dirt crumbling between his fingers, the way light rests on the edges of leaves, the faint shine of moisture still hidden in shaded places, the mild scent of crushed grass underfoot. And these small things do not gather into any great thought. They only accompany him through the day, giving texture to the long, plain hours. As the afternoon begins to lean toward evening, the sunlight changes again, taking on a richer color, warmer, deeper, more golden, and the shadows begin to lengthen across the rows, stretching quietly over the ground, and the air cools just enough to feel different on his face and hands. And by now, he is nearing the end of his work. He cleans and puts right the last small things that need doing, and he does so with the same care as before, because there is no point in hurrying through the final moments of a day that has been slow from beginning to end. And when at last he is finished, he wipes the soil from his hands as best he can, gathers his tools, and stands once more at the edge of the field, looking over the land in the warm evening light. There's nothing dramatic in this moment, only a quiet sense of completion, the simple feeling of a day that has followed its expected path. And then he turns and begins the walk home. The path feels different now under the light of late day, though it is the same path, the same stones, the same bends, because the evening sun lays long, golden strips across it, and the fences, roofs, and trees all seem softer in the lowered light, walks, the village slowly gathers around him again. A hen crossing near a yard, a faint voice from somewhere behind a wall, the smell of cooking beginning to lift from a chimney, and all of it calm, all of it settled, as if the whole place is folding itself inward toward night. He reaches his house and opens the door, stepping into the dim interior where the air feels cooler than outside. And at once the room greets him with its own familiar stillness. The bench by the wall, the low table, the hearth, the few simple things arranged in their usual places, and he sets down his tools where they belong, feeling the small satisfaction of order, of wooden handle against wooden peg, of iron blade resting where it should rest. And then he begins the quiet work of evening. He may add wood to the fire, or stir what is already warming in a pot, or cut a little bread. And each of these actions is small and measured, done without noise and without hurry. And while he moves around the room, the light outside continues to fade by slow degrees, gold becoming pale blue becoming deeper, while inside the room, the shadows lengthen and gather in the corners until the fire, or a candle, gives the main light. He eats his evening meal slowly, just as he did at midday, and the room around him remains still except for the small sounds of spoon, bowl, wood, and a flame. And after he has eaten, he cleans what little needs cleaning, wipes the table, puts things back, checks the door, and lets the ordinary order of the house return. When these small tasks are done, he sits for a while, perhaps on the bench, perhaps near the hearth, and rests, feeling the tiredness of the day not as pain but as a soft heaviness, a natural and familiar tiredness that comes from many hours of steady movement under the open sky. And in the quiet of the evening, he has no need for much thought, because tomorrow will be much like today, and the next day much like tomorrow. And there's a kind of peace in that, a kind of deep ease in knowing the shape of one's days before they arrive. Outside, the sounds of the village grow fewer, then softer, then fewer again, and the night gathers over the roofs and paths, cool and dark and calm, while inside the house the last light from the fire flickers gently against the wall, and the farmer rises at last to prepare for sleep. He removes his outer clothes, folds or sets them aside, and lies down on the simple bed where the day began. And for a while he listens to the night, the distant stir of wind, the faintest creak of the house, the silence between one small sound and the next, and his breathing becomes slower, his body heavier, his thoughts quieter, and nothing interrupts this soft settling, nothing sudden, nothing sharp, because his day has carried him gently from darkness into light and back again, through cool morning, warm noon, golden evening, and quiet night. All in one steady flow. And now, as his eyes close and the room grows still around him, he drifts toward sleep in the same calm way he has moved through every other part of the day, slowly, simply, and without effort. And if you imagine that slow day clearly enough, the pale dawn over the misted field, the cool soil beneath his hand, the warm shade at midday, the lengthening shadows in the evening, the quiet firelight in the small room, you too may begin to feel that same softness spreading through your own thoughts, that same steady rhythm, that same gentle repetition, until your breathing matches the slow pace of his steps, and your mind grows as quiet as the field before sunrise, and all the simple sounds and textures of that plain medieval day blur into one calm stream, one long unbroken movement from waking to rest rest, from rest to sleep. And with nothing more to do, nowhere more to go, no surprise waiting, no noise calling, only the soft memory of wood, straw, earth, dew, light, and silence. You can let yourself grow heavier and calmer and stiller, and very slowly, with the same quiet ease as the farmer settling at last beneath his blanket in the dark little house, you can drift gently and steadily into sleep.